Hi guys, if you enjoy my content, be sure to give this video a like so that the YouTube algorithm remembers that my channel exists. In the Dune Universe, the 9th planet in the Alkalurops star system was known as Ix. The Ixians not only lived on the edge of the human empire, they operated in ways which pushed the limits of the universal ban on thinking machine intelligence. After the Machine Crusade, the Butlerian Jihad, which violently expunged all computing technology, it was agreed during the Great Convention that the violation of the ban on thinking machines would result in execution. Still, the Ixians were not subjugated in the Empire. Ixian technology was widely acknowledged to be the best, so they were allowed to exist, and a blind eye was turned as long as they didn't go too far. According to the appendix of Dune, Ix, along with the planet Richese, had escaped the more severe effects of the Butlerian Jihad and remained strongholds of machine technology. Machine culture permeated Ixian society, and this only seemed to increase during the time of the God Emperor and after it. The God Emperor Leto II acknowledged the dangers of Ixian invention. He tolerated them for reasons which they themselves struggled to understand.
Technological innovators, no! You are criminals of science in my empire.
Leto not only tolerated the Ixians, he employed them and put their technology to use. Many of the Ixian technologies used by Leto seemed to defy the Jihad. The Ixians, like the Tleilaxu, had many trade secrets. That is to say, only the Ixians truly knew how Ixian technology worked. We've discussed the Ixians before on this channel, but one of the purposes of this video is to discuss one specific aspect of Ixian society, its governmental system. The planet Ix was governed by a supreme technocracy. The word technocracy is derived from two Greek words, techne, meaning skill, and kratos, meaning power in relation to governance. Now, technically, a technocracy is any system of government in which those in charge of making decisions are appointed based on their own specific expertise in a given area. But typically in science fiction, there is a heavy regard to technocracies as governments in which the technical experts in charge of decision-making are experts of scientific or technical knowledge. The real-world technocracy movement began in the early 20th century, but was only popular in North America for a brief period of time during the 1930s, before its ideas were overlooked in favor of others which related to dealing with the crisis that was the Great Depression. Technocracy Inc. was the main organization related to the technocracy movement. In 1937, Technocracy Inc., in Volume 3 of their magazine, The Technocrat, stated, "Technocracy is the science of social engineering, the scientific operation of the entire social mechanism to produce and distribute goods and services to the entire population of this continent. For the first time in human history, it will be done as a scientific, technical, engineering problem. There will be no place for politics or politicians, finance or financiers, rackets or racketeers." Social engineering in this context relates to the use of centralized planning in order to regulate the future development and behavior of the society and manage social evolution. One of the fears that such a system could invoke is related to the fact that it seems as though the human element is being removed. Science is cold, rigid, and unfeeling. And two, what could eventually become of giving ultimate power to technical elites? The answer echoes what happens when absolute power is given over to anyone: corruption. But in a significantly advanced enough technocracy, the elite class would wield even more power over the lower classes due to the fact that they control the technology. As I said, machine culture permeated throughout Ixian society. I pointed out in my video, The Fringe Worlds, that the Ixians were on a path leading towards inhumanity. Leto talked about the dangers of machine culture and what arose from it in God Emperor of Dune when referencing the Ixian creation of Wee Nori, who was engineered to make Leto fall for her.
She makes me recall the Butlerian Jihad in a poignant way. She is the antithesis of all that is mechanical and non-human. How odd is it, Moneo, that the Ixians of all people should produce this one person who so perfectly embodies those qualities which I hold most dear. I do not understand your reference to the Butlerian Jihad, Lord. Machines that think have no place in... The target of the Jihad was a machine attitude as much as the machines, Leto said. Humans set those machines to usurp our sense of beauty, our necessary selfdom, out of which we make living judgments. Naturally, the machines were destroyed.
Leto suggests that humankind rejected thinking machines because the machines took away human individuality, and essential selfhood was lost. Something about the human relationship to machines before the Butlerian Jihad was a detriment to mankind's well-being. Humans had grown dependent on machines.
There is a lesson in that too. What do such machines really do? They increase the number of things we can do without thinking. Things we do without thinking. There is the real danger.
Human dependence on machines would lead to stagnation, and careless use of great technology could have devastating effects, especially if those in possession of that technology hold positions of power. In God Emperor of Dune, Leto mentions Arafel, which meant the cloud darkness of holy judgment. He says,
"Do not fear the Ixians."
And he heard his own voice as a fading whisper.
They can make the machines, but they can no longer make Arafel. I know. I was there.
Here, Leto II essentially reveals that one of the purposes of his golden path was to prevent the Ixians from destroying humanity, seemingly through the creation of some machine-based technology, Arafel. The Ixians operated on the technological fringes, never considering the consequences of their inventions. This is the machine culture that would ultimately lead to the creation of Arafel. And because Ix itself was ruled by a technocracy, the swift execution of Arafel's creation process was inevitable. To sum things up, Leto II seemed to be convinced that the future of humanity was interwoven with the future of machines, and he maintained a delicate balance with Ix throughout the course of his reign, checking them when necessary, though never outright destroying them. He continued to use many Ixian devices and even pushed innovation on certain technologies. His royal cart was one of Ixian manufacture. He could receive information from and even speak within the minds of those he chose by implanting a small device of Ixian manufacture within their head. Fish speaker Nayla has such a device. Leto also uses an Ixian device called a dictator to record his thoughts. When his journals were being stolen from his citadel in the beginning of God Emperor of Dune, he uses Ixian devices to watch the event. When Leto made public appearances during Sihanouk, he used Ixian devices to project his image to those who could not see him directly, as well as Ixian devices to amplify his voice. Ixian devices even maintain prominent use after the death of the God Emperor. Their technology may have evolved somewhat, but according to the Bene Gesserit Mother Superior, they were a declining civilization by that point. In Chapter House Dune, we see that the Ixians used robos for mundane tasks. Robos were non-humanoid robotic devices. Such devices were far from rare in Ixian society. Functional, hallmark of Ixian servos. Busy little accompaniments to a sojourn at a junction, or its equivalent anywhere. They were so commonplace that few people noticed them, since they were not capable of dealing with deliberate interference. They were subsided into motionless humming. But back to the main question of this video. Why didn't Leto destroy the Ixians when he easily could have? The answer to this question is of course hidden within the text. In God Emperor of Dune, When Siona is tested in Leto's desert, the character is shocked upon discovery that Leto makes use of an Ixian machine. Leto implies that there is also a lesson in that fact. You see, though Leto knew that the Ixians may one day invent a threat that could destroy all of humanity, Arafel, he also believed that the future of mankind was tied to machines. This is a realization in which Mentat Duncan Idaho comes to in the book Chapter House Dune.
He was fascinated by the idea of human and machine inextricably bound to each other, each testing the limits of the other.
Leto knew that the balance of human-machine interaction was delicate, but a necessary part of human survival. The Bene Gesserit essentially come to the same conclusion in Chapter House Dune when the Mother Superior decides to have someone made into a cyborg after they are gravely injured. These facts suggest that the Butlerian Jihad went too far with the eradication of thinking machines. The balance is what was important. Leto likely did not destroy the Ixians because 1. Humanity needed Ixian innovation. 2. The Ixian invention of Arafel was thwarted by the creation of Siona. And 3. Whatever catastrophes the Ixians did create would act as pressures pushing humankind to evolve further. It was all part of his golden path, which he himself admitted was cruel.
She had to be made to recognize that his primary consciousness worked in a Fremen way, and that, like the terrible machines of that apocalyptic vision, the Predator could follow any creature who left tracks.
"The golden path," she whispered. "I can feel it."
Then, glaring at him,
"It's so cruel."
"Survival has always been cruel."
"They couldn't hide," she whispered.
So Leto, in the end, did not destroy the Ixians, because they too had a role to play in his golden path. Leto II was playing a game far subtler than even the most complex of Bene Gesserit maneuverings. Leto considered the risk that the Ixians posed to be a necessary risk to take. For my other videos on the Ixians, check out the playlist linked in the description of this video titled Dune: The Fringe Worlds. Thank you so much for watching.